The smoke detector screamed like a banshee that morning, exactly 3 minutes after I'd declared with absolute confidence to my empty apartment. Today is the day I perfect my signature breakfast burrito. Bang! Bang! The knocks at my door were so aggressive they made my vintage whisk collection rattle against the wall. I waved a dish towel frantically in front of the detector, flour dusting my dark hair like premature graying. Suddenly the door flew open. A woman in yoga pants and an oversized NYU hoodie burst in. Her chestnut hair was pulled into a messy bun that looked more like what you'd get from sticking your fingers in an electrical socket. Whether you're cooking up meth or summoning demons, whatever culinary disaster you're brewing in here has to stop before my coffee even has a chance to brew. I turned, still flapping the towel, and immediately knocked over a bowl of beaten eggs. They splattered across the linoleum floor with a wet slap that echoed in the sudden silence between the detector's beeps. Well, I said, eyeing the yellow puddle inching toward her designer sneakers. Technically, it was supposed to be breakfast burritos, but I'm open to interpretations involving demon summoning. She stared at me, then at the flour-covered catastrophe that was my kitchen, then back at me. Are you covered in cocaine, flour? I corrected, running a hand through my hair and creating a small white cloud. Though I'm not entirely sure that makes a difference in terms of the amount of trouble I'm in. I'm Lena, she said, carefully stepping around the egg puddle. Your new neighbor. Who's heard what sounded like a small war every morning this past week? Nolan. I introduced myself. And in my defense, most wars don't smell this good when they're over. I gestured to the stove, where something simmered peacefully in a pan. See, the bacon survived. Lena eyed the pan suspiciously. Is it supposed to be that color? I glanced over. The bacon had hit a shade somewhere between charcoal and obsidian. It's a design choice. I call it Cajun style. You call that Cajun. I call that a fire hazard. Hey, now, I said, grabbing the pan and switching off the burner. Paul Prudhomme didn't become a legend by playing it safe. Paul Prudhomme didn't set off smoke alarms at dawn every morning either. Lena shot back. But there was the ghost of a smile tugging at her lips. Fair point. I cracked open the window and blessed fresh air started to cut through the haze. Listen, I'm really sorry about the noise. I'm trying to perfect recipes for my food truck, and apparently, my kitchen has some trust issues. Your kitchen has trust issues. Well, either that, or it's actively trying to sabotage my dreams. I picked up a spatula that had somehow bent into a question mark shape. Exhibit A. Against her better judgment, Lena laughed. It was a real laugh, not the polite one people force to escape awkward situations. How did you even bend a spatula like that? Talent, I said solemnly. Pure, undiluted talent. More like pure, undiluted disaster. Hey, disaster is just another word for adventure that hasn't found itself yet. Lena surveyed the kitchen again. Flour everywhere, eggs on the floor. What looked like pancake batter stuck to the ceiling, and a smoke detector finally winding down to an occasional chirp. This isn't an adventure. It's an emergency drill. Emergency drills usually don't smell like cinnamon and regret. Is that what that is? I thought something had died in your walls. I clutched my chest in mock offense. My experimental French toast spice blend doesn't smell like death, thank you very much. It smells like deadly ambition. That's actually worse. The smoke detector let out one last indignant beep before falling silent. In the quiet that followed, I realized Lena was standing in my kitchen, yoga pants and oversized hoodie and all, that her eyes were the exact color of honey, and that she was looking at me like I was either completely insane or the most entertaining thing to happen to her all week. So, I said, suddenly nervous. Can I offer you a coffee? Fair warning. My coffee maker is the only appliance that truly loves me. Lena checked her phone. I have exactly 17 minutes before my first Zoom meeting, and I haven't had caffeine yet. If your coffee tastes like your kitchen smells, I might die. That's a risk I'll let you take. God help me. Me too. While I poured coffee from my miraculously functioning machine, Lena perched on a bar stool and watched me navigate the disaster zone. There was something oddly charming about the way I moved through the chaos, like it was all perfectly normal. So, she said, taking the mug, a food truck, huh? What's the concept? I smiled, and for the first time that morning, I felt genuinely confident. Comfort fusion cuisine. Taking classic dishes from different cultures and blending them into something beautifully delicious. Lena took a sip of the coffee. It was actually good. And how's that going for you? I gestured to the kitchen around us. As you can see, I'm still working out a few kinks. 3 weeks later, Lena had developed what she privately called the Nolan schedule. Smoke alarm in the morning for breakfast experiments. Mysterious clatters in the afternoon for lunch development. and the grand finale of culinary chaos in the evening for dinner innovation. She'd also developed an uncanny ability to identify my disasters by scent alone. The evening symphony that day started with what sounded like a meteor strike in my kitchen. That's either a soufflé collapse, or you've finally achieved nuclear fusion with the microwave, she muttered without looking up from her laptop. 5 minutes later, there was a knock at her door. I stood in her hallway, covered head to toe in what looked like chocolate cake batter, holding a bowl like a peace offering. My expression hovered somewhere between guilty and proud. Before you say anything, I want you to know it technically went better than planned. You look like you went 10 rounds with a chocolate factory and lost. The cake fought back. I said seriously. But I think we came to an understanding in the end. Lena peered past me to my open apartment door, where it looked like Jackson Pollock had redecorated my kitchen using dessert as his medium. Should I call in the hazmat team? Nah, this is actually progress. Last week I managed to get batter on my ceiling fan. Don't ask how. I'm still processing the physics. Was the ceiling fan on? That's what makes it so impressive. Despite her better judgment, Lena smiled again. It was becoming a worrying pattern. What's in the bowl, Nolan? Well, it was supposed to be a molten chocolate cake. Now it's more like a chocolate geological formation. I held out the bowl hopefully. Want to help me figure out what went wrong? I have a deadline. I have wine. Lena hesitated, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. What kind of wine? The kind that turns culinary disasters into creative expressions. God, you're dangerous. But she was already closing her laptop. My kitchen looked like a chocolate bomb had gone off. Batter on the backsplash, flowery fingerprints on every surface, and something that resembled a whole egg embedded in my microwave door. Okay, Lena said, assessing the damage. Walk me through what happened. Well, I followed the recipe exactly. Number 1. Fine, I followed the spirit of the recipe. It said to fold the chocolate mixture gently, so I used my gentlest folding technique. Lena picked up a whisk twisted into a pretzel shape. This is your gentle technique. The whisk was defective, clearly not built for vigorous folding. Vigorous folding is an oxymoron, Nolan. Not in my kitchen. Lena opened the oven and peered inside. What came out could generously be called abstract art, but it looked more like a chocolate meteorite. This is actually impressive. How did you get that shape? I may have gotten creative with the baking temperature. How creative? Let's just say 350 degrees was more of a suggestion than a rule. What temperature did you actually use? I mumbled something unintelligible. Sorry, what? 425 degrees, I said louder, but only because my oven doesn't go higher. Lena stared at me. You tried to bake a cake at volcanic temperatures. I wanted it to go faster. I've got places to be. What places? Your kitchen is your entire social calendar. Hey, that's not fair. Sometimes I go to the grocery store to replace the appliances I've broken. The wine definitely helped make the situation make sense. Lena laughed as she poked at the chocolate formation with a fork. This isn't cake, it's a science experiment. An edible science experiment. I'm not sold on the edible part. There's only one way to find out. I broke off a piece and popped it in my mouth. My face went through several interesting phases before settling on surprise. It's actually not terrible. You look shocked. I am shocked. This is the first time something I've cooked has accidentally succeeded. Lena tried a small bite. It was dense, gooey and, despite the appearance, genuinely delicious. Oh my god, it's actually good. Right, it's like brownies and cake had a baby. And the baby decided to become a hockey puck. A delicious hockey puck. The best kind. We stood in my demolished kitchen, eating lopsided chocolate cake with our fingers and sipping wine from coffee mugs. Because I'd shattered all my wine glasses the week before in an incident involving a marinade, and the laws of physics conspiring against me. Don't ask, I'd said. It involves physics I still don't understand. You know, Lena said, you might be onto something with this accidental cooking method. You think? I mean, if you could recreate this disaster on purpose, you might have a signature dessert for your food truck. My face lit up. Let's workshop the name. The fudge fiasco. Better. The brownie blunder. Getting warmer. The sweet disaster. Lena thought about it. Took another bite of the accidentally perfect dessert. Not bad at all. And that's when I realized that somewhere between the flour explosions and the chocolate formations, she'd started looking forward to my daily disasters, which was either incredibly sweet or deeply concerning, probably both. By the 6th week, Lena had accepted 3 fundamental truths. My smoke detector was more reliable than her alarm clock. Her productivity had skyrocketed because my culinary mishaps provided perfect work breaks. And she was completely, totally ridiculously in love with her catastrophically incompetent neighbor, which made the current silence from my apartment deeply unsettling. It was a Friday evening, and my place had been suspiciously quiet all day. No clangs, no smoke alarms, no mysterious booms, just nothing. Lena pressed her ear to the wall. Shared silence. She knocked on my door. "Nolan, are you still alive in there? Or have you finally achieved spontaneous combustion?" The door opened, and there I stood, unusually clean and slightly panicked. Behind me, my kitchen was organized. Spotless normal. "Oh my God," Lena said, "you're dying, aren't you? This is how I find out about your terminal illness, through the sudden appearance of functional cooking skills." "I'm not dying," I said. But I looked nervous. I wanted to cook you dinner. A real dinner. One that looks like what it's supposed to be." Lena blinked. "On purpose." "No explosions. That's the plan." "Nolan, are you okay? Should I call someone?" I laughed and ran a hand through my remarkably flour-free hair. "I know it's weird for me. But I thought you might want to see what happens when I actually follow a recipe instead of treating it like loose guidelines." Lena stepped into my apartment, genuinely thrown by the lack of chaos. "This is deeply unsettling. Where's the disaster? Where's the creative destruction? I may have outsourced the disaster part." I nodded toward the stove, where something bubbled gently. I called my mom for her foolproof pasta recipe. Literally foolproof, even for an idiot. She said even I couldn't screw it up. "Your mom clearly doesn't know you very well." That's what I told her too. Lena approached the stove. It smelled good. Really good. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just dinner, with someone whose opinion on my cooking actually matters to me." "Oh Nolan, you don't need to impress me. I've seen you turn pancakes into abstract art. I've seen you achieve fusion cuisine by accidentally dropping ingredients on the floor. At this point, I'm pretty unflappable. That's exactly why I wanted to cook something normal, to prove I can do it." The pasta was perfect. The sauce was balanced and aromatic. The garlic bread was golden, not charred. It was, by all objective standards, a successful meal. Lena took a bite, chewed thoughtfully, and smiled. "Nolan, this is absolutely delicious." I beamed with pride. "Really? No disasters, no smoke alarm, nothing. It's restaurant quality," Lena continued, twirling another forkful. "Perfectly seasoned. Beautifully executed." She set down her fork and looked at me with mischievously narrowed eyes. "But you know what I think? That I've finally proven I can cook like a normal person." "I think," Lena said, leaning in conspiratorially. "What if you applied your unconventional creativity to this perfect base? What if you unleashed the real Nolan on this recipe?" My eyes lit up like a kid told he could have dessert for breakfast. "You want me to experiment with it? I want to see what magic happens when you stop playing it safe." "You sure? Because I've been wondering what would happen if we added kimchi to a carbonara." "That sounds absolutely insane." And Lena grinned. "And I can't wait to taste it." 30 minutes later, we were back on familiar ground. My kitchen looked like a battlefield. The smoke detector had opinions about our life choices, and we were both dusted in a fine layer of parmesan and kimchi juice. "You know," Lena said, twirling the fusion pasta on her fork, "this shouldn't work." But she took a bite, and her eyes widened. The fermented tang of the kimchi played against the creamy richness of the carbonara, while unexpected notes of sesame and garlic layered in flavors that shouldn't exist but absolutely did. It was like nothing she'd tasted before. Complex, surprising, and utterly brilliant. "Oh my God, Nolan, this is incredible. Really, it's Michelin star-worthy fusion cuisine." She took another bite, savoring the impossible combination. "You're not just a kitchen disaster. You're a culinary innovator creating masterpieces through beautiful chaos." I stared at her, then at the pasta, then back at her. "So, you're saying my madness actually works? Your madness is your superpower. This tastes like it should cost $50 in a trendy downtown spot." "So," I said, smiling at her over my gloriously chaotic kitchen, "want to help me test recipes for the food truck? I promise every meal will be an adventure." "Nolan Hayes," Lena said, "I thought you'd never ask." The smoke detector chose that exact moment to voice its approval with one final triumphant wail. To extend this a bit, I need to dig deeper into my feelings right then. As the detector finally quieted, I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the kitchen chaos. Lena wasn't just a neighbor anymore, she was someone who added color to my messy life. I remembered my first days in this cramped Brooklyn apartment, buzzing with dreams for my food truck. The idea had sparked during a backpacking trip through Asia and Europe, where I'd devoured street food that blurred cultural lines: spicy Thai tacos in Bangkok, Korean French crepes in Paris. Back home in New York, though, everything had gone sideways. Failed experiments piled up like dirty dishes, and doubt crept in like smoke under the door. Until Lena showed up, turning my solo struggles into something shared. In the weeks that followed, we built a ritual around the madness. Mornings started with the inevitable alarm blare, and sometimes she'd knock just to check on the fallout. We'd laugh over charred toast or explosive sauces, the kind that bubbled over like a witch's brew. I'd open up about my family, how my mom whipped up flawless Italian feasts back in Jersey, and how I was always the klutz who turned Sunday gravy into a slip and slide. Lena shared bits of her world too. She was a freelance graphic designer, hooked on sunrise yoga flows, and caffeine was her love language. Our talks flowed as easily as ingredients in my wild experiments, bridging the thin wall between our lives. One evening stands out, after a particularly botched curry attempt that turned the kitchen into a spice sea. Orange turmeric stains on the counters, cumin clouds hanging in the air like fog. We ended up sitting cross-legged on the floor, eating the salvageable bits with our hands, fingers sticky, and laughing until our sides hurt. "You know, Nolan," she said, wiping chili from her chin, "your cooking is like your mind, full of ideas that just explode everywhere." I chuckled, but deep down, I knew she nailed it. My disasters weren't failures, they were my way of mapping the world through flavors, chasing that elusive spark of fusion. With Lena there, it felt less like solitary trial and error and more like a joint expedition, her quick wit cutting through my frustration like a sharp knife through dough. That carbonara kimchi night marked a shift though. It wasn't just about the food anymore, it was about us. I thought back to all the times she'd grabbed a sponge to help scrub batter from the fridge, or tossed out a suggestion, like a dash of smoked paprika, that elevated a flop into gold. She'd transformed my food truck dream from a lone wolf hustle into a partnership, her eye for design already sketching logos in her notebook during cleanup sessions. In the days after, we dove deeper into testing a sushi burrito that collapsed into a glorious mess but inspired a handheld wrap with nori crisps and gak, a curry sausage mashup blending Parisian street sausages with Indian garam masala, the kind of bold twist that made my mouth water just thinking about it. Each session wrapped with laughter, minor victories, and that growing certainty that this, us, the chaos, the creation was real. By the time the food truck rolled out, painted in vibrant murals Lena had designed, swirls of global spices bleeding into New York skylines, she stood beside me on opening day in Williamsburg. The line snaked around the block for our chaotic creations, as we branded them, that kimchi carbonara as a special, the chocolate puck reborn as meteor brownies. Customers raved, snapping pics for Instagram, and I was in love. Not the fireworks kind, but the steady burn of someone who sees your worst and stays for the magic. Our story kicked off with a shrieking smoke detector and wrapped in a shared dream, laced with flower bombs, near misses, and endless what-ifs. Life has this weird way of dropping lessons in the messiest moments. In my whirlwind with Lena, I learned perfection isn't the goal. It's the grit to learn from screw-ups and lean into the disorder that really shapes you. My kitchen was a war zone, strewn with blackened bacon, erupting batters, and a detector that wailed like an angry choir. Yet in that glorious wreck, I didn't just salvage recipes for the truck. I forged a bond with someone who didn't just tolerate my storm but danced in it. That ride showed me the best stuff in life bubbles up from the sloppiest spills. It's tempting to chase flawless, but the real enchantment hits when you own your flubs and spin them into gold. Lena and I built a life from batter blasts and botched bakes, breathing fire into my vision. That's the takeaway I want to pass on. Don't dodge the disorder in your days. It might just be the launchpad for something epic. Share your thoughts in the comments. What disaster in your life taught you something priceless? Let's inspire each other, and if this tale hit home, subscribe to my channel for more chaotic kitchen escapades and life lessons. Join our crew, where we toast to the triumphs born from the tumbles. Hit that subscribe button and let's cook, chuckle, and grow together.